Welcome everybody. We're gonna just take a minute or two and let everybody get in and make yourself comfortable, and we will get started very shortly. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to just let everybody come in. So get yourself comfortable, get a drink. It's going to be a nice evening, an enjoyable evening, a fun evening to be together. Hello, everybody. I am Debbie Hawkman. I'm the Director of Arts, Culture, and Education at the David Posnack JCC in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm welcoming you to the Florida JCC's Book and Author Series. This program is probably the best thing that came out of the pandemic so far because it joins 6 communities in South Florida through a love of books and reading. And we really look forward to these programs each month where we bring together authors and local celebs in conversation. So on behalf of those JCCs, mine, of course, the David Posnack JCC in Fort Lauderdale, the Alpra JCC in South Miami, the Galbert Family JCC in Miami Beach, the Adolph and Rose Levis JCC in Boca Raton, the Mandel JCC in the Palm Beaches, and the Michael Ann Russell JCC in North Miami Beach. We all thank you so much for being a part of tonight's event. Tonight's program is going to be a conversation about the books Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids with editor Zibby Owens and Sun Sentinel journalist Cindy Goodman. During the program, please type any of your questions into the Q&A feature. We are going to attempt to get to all the questions because we're sure you will have a lot, and we ask you for your understanding if the time does not allow us to get to all of them. And if you have not already purchased your copy of Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids, we encourage you to visit our partners at Books and Books, and we will put the link for the purchase in our chat room. And this program I was looking forward to because I've often said that the biggest change in a woman's life is when you become a mother, because no matter how prepared you think you are, until you are really in it, you don't understand the impact. And then all of a sudden you're knee deep in the juggle of work and life and love and laughter. And so it's the wonderful and the crazy all together mixed in. So when preparing for tonight's program, the person that came to mind to moderate it was Cindy Goodman. And some of you may know, or I think a lot of you probably know, that Cindy used to write a column about balancing. It was called The Balancing Act. And she was always aiming to help you figure out how to balance between your career and your family. And she just, even though now she's doing a little bit more in the health side of things in journalism, we know that her experience, both in her own life and going through all the readings and everything that she did, will make her a wonderful moderator for tonight's program. And Zibby, you were with us for another program we had. You were our moderator, so we're happy to welcome you tonight. As you were the creator of this program, of this book. And we want to point out that Zibby is a creator and host of an award-winning podcast called Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. And she was named New York City's most powerful bookfluencer. She's the co-founder and CEO of Zibby Books, which is a publishing home for fiction and memoirs. And she's also the CEO of Moms Don't Have Time To, which is a media company. And some of you may have actually seen her because she's a regular contributor to Good Morning America. And when she's not doing all these other things, she has 4 children of her own that I'm sure she's juggling as she lives in New York. And we are so happy through technology that you are with us tonight here in our homes. And I think it's probably a little bit colder up there than it is down here, but we're enjoying some cold weather in South Florida. So I'm going to turn this over to you guys, and thank you both for being here and being a part of tonight.
Well, thank you. I'm really looking forward to talking to Zibby. I really enjoyed the book. I'll just say that straight out. I actually enjoyed every single essay there. So first, I want to start out by telling you my 5 favorite things that I liked about the book.
Great.
One is that I enjoyed that it was so personal. I felt like it gave me a glimpse into people's lives, and I felt like they were being so candid and showing me their authentic self. So I truly enjoyed that. The second thing I enjoyed was that many of the essays were written during the COVID, and it just felt so timely. And it felt like this is such an odd time in the world. And it was just really nice to get to read something so current of what people were going through, you know, just at this point in time in their lives. I also liked that it touched on a range of emotions. I felt like there were some stories, you know, just address loss and, you know, the painfulness of loss and grief. And then some stories, you know, gave us the high of success. So I just love that you covered the range of emotions. Fourth, I like that you included so many of my favorite authors and writers in there. You just had a really good range. A lot of women that I really have followed through the years and really enjoyed reading, and many of them were in the book. And then lastly, I like that the essay spoke the language of the 2020s. You had Zoom, lockdown, pods, COVID-19, quarantine, all of the words that are now part of our vocabulary, that if somebody maybe wrote this book a few years ago, it wouldn't include these words. So those are my 5 favorite things about the book. I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I really thought it'd be interesting to hear about how you chose what essays to include. And did you come up with the categories ahead of time and then look for essays that fit into those categories, or did it just come about based on the essays that you received? So tell us about the process.
Sure. And first, thank you so much to Debbie, and thank you, Cindy, for moderating this. And thank you especially for launching with the 5 best things about the book. I do interviews like every day myself. I'm going to have to try that at some point, make a little list like it's an article. This is fantastic. Anyway, thank you. How did I choose the essays? I chose the categories first. I had done Moms Don't Have Time to, a quarantine anthology. This was a collection of essays people wrote in real time that I emailed out every week of the pandemic in the early stages, like March, April, May. And I realized I had enough of these to make into a book at the end of it, but it wasn't intended to be a book. So then I realized, well, I really like doing anthologies. Maybe I should try one on purpose. So that's how I did this book. And the first book had 5 categories. Moms Don't Have Time to Eat, Read Books, Have Sex, Breathe, and something else. Work out. Did I say that? Anyway, and then the next book, there were so many more things to choose from. What I actually did was post on Facebook and said, fill in the sentence, moms don't have time to ... And the answer I got the most was drink a cup of coffee before it gets cold. So, which I totally related to, and I have my like stash of different warming coffee cups. But the combination of what people responded and what I thought would generate the best essays were Moms Don't Have Time to Sleep, Get Sick, See Friends, Write, and Lose Weight. So from there, I talked to a bunch of my podcast guests. At this point, I've interviewed over 900 people on my podcast, which I turned into a daily podcast during the pandemic because I viewed it as sort of my mission, because I had been up and running on this podcast for a couple of years, that I should do it every single day. So I've been doing it every single day since March of 2020, thinking that at some point this might end. But so far, it's still going. I think in June, I'll go back to 5 a week. But anyway, I asked those authors, especially ones who I knew had something relevant, either the topic of their book or something that we spoke about in the interview that would relate to these. And then other people I just really loved and wanted to hear what they had to say on anything. Some people I asked for essays and they pitched 2 different essays that sounded great. So a couple of people like Jean Kwok, who wrote Searching for Sylvie Lee. I was like, sure, just write both essays. And I worked with Carolyn Murnick, who was a freelance editor who had been at New York Magazine for a while. So she did the down and dirty sort of line editing of the essays for the second book. And we both, got pitches, and it was just so neat to see the essays come rolling in. So Lily King is one of my favorite authors. She wrote Writers and Lovers, and most recently Tuesdays in April. I think it's called Tuesdays in April, a collection of short stories. And when she emailed me with a Word doc that said essay for Zibby, I was like, this is the coolest thing. Like, and it was all about this personal stuff with her and her daughter's illness. And I didn't know any of that. She writes fiction. So, I mean, she's like my friend. I now check in on her all the time. How's your daughter? What's going on? And it's really, and like you said, they are real and raw, and people were at home still, or just coming back to life. And it was a moment where people felt like being candid and truly themselves. And
I think that came
yes,
through.
I think we captured that.
Yeah, I really do think you captured that. Well, there were so many of the essays that really touched me. I would start reading them, and I didn't expect them to go to certain places, and that they did. So which of the essays do you feel like, give me a 3 or 4 that really touched you?
3 or 4. Well, Lily King's, as I mentioned, about her daughter and her illness. I can find the title of that.
Lyme disease? She
Lyme
with
disease.
her daughter with Lyme disease. Yeah, that was really interesting.
I really loved Christy Woodson Harvey's essay about her late grandfather, who passed away, and when he was alive, he would always give gold coins, and then she found a gold coin at Christmas.
I was going to mention that as one of my favorites too.
Oh, I literally, every time I discuss it or read it, I get goosebumps.
Yeah.
And, as the older I get, the more I believe in all these signs. I really do.
Yeah, that one touched me. It really did.
Let's see. Jean Kwok's essay, Am I Pretty? I thought that was really interesting about her culture of, being a Chinese immigrant, and, just not feeling like she fit in anywhere. I don't know. That was sort of a heartfelt reflection. I really loved Adrienne Bankert's essay, One on One. She's a news anchor. She was with GMA, and now she's with News Nation. And that was when her whole thing is about kindness. So she wrote a book on the power of kindness, and she saw a mom struggling with a stroller and a kid in the middle of the road and all this stuff. And she's one of 8 kids. And the woman was just so frazzled, and she took the woman aside and was like, it's okay. Like, you're going to get through this. And she didn't have to say that. Like, she's just so special. And then it turned out she ended up having this connection professionally with the woman. And it's all, this good karma coming around. So those were a couple I really enjoyed.
Well, I'm going to ask you the next question, but before I do, because you touched on a couple of essays that I was going to talk about, I felt like maybe 4 or 5 of the essays, I felt like I really took away something from, I learned something that would change my behavior. One of them was the essay that you mentioned, where she became, she connected with this woman on the street, and it kind of left me with the lesson of just talk and listen to people. And then there was an essay about the woman who her ex-husband invited her to go to California with him.
Yes.
Because her and her current husband. And that one sort of left me with a lesson of being open-minded. Initially, I'm sure anyone who was invited by their ex-husband to come to live in their city during COVID, but she was open-minded enough to embrace the idea, and it sort of changed the path of her life. And then there was a woman that
and that was Nicola Harrison, by the way, and she wrote 2 books. She wrote Montauk and The Showgirl, and I did 2 events with her in New York, and then recently in Manhattan Beach, and she is like a new version of herself. I mean, It's amazing how relaxed and happy she is out there. So yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I mean, there was so much, and then you had an essay on a woman with her friend was named Snow. And
yes.
And it just also kind of like drove home the point to me of how important it is to stay in touch with old friends and how easy it is to lose touch with people, and how Snow committed suicide, but afterwards she sort of regretted that she hadn't stayed in touch with Snow more. And I felt like there was a lesson there to take away from that. And
That was Jean McCulloch, and she wrote a beautiful memoir, by the way, called All Happy Families, about her own loss of her mother, or sorry, her loss of her father on her wedding weekend
oh
in
wow.
Southampton. It's a really good book, underrated, I think, but really great. All Happy Families.
And then lastly, your story, I thought, with the brain cyst, and how, wasn't that yours? Yes. And
Yes, yeah.
you got like 6 different opinions, and it was the 6th opinion when the doctor said you don't need to be operated on, and how that sort of changed the whole course of your treatment. And it just really opened my mind and maybe changed my behavior of not, maybe be open-minded and don't jump into anything, and take the time to get different opinions. So I just felt like a lot of these pieces did change my behavior. I wanted to mention that some of these pieces were like really touched on when we were talking about, personal stories. The range of stories that are included: suicide, cancer, sleep deprivation, Lyme disease, death of a loved one. These were heavy topics, but yet they came across as just so uplifting. I just wanted to mention that. So you did a really good job with that. I enjoyed that. I wanted to ask you, because you have a lot of the essays are based around the idea of sleep. Did you realize that so many people had sleep issues?
It was nice to hear, now that I can never fall asleep and stay asleep myself. Yes, I think sleep is like the common denominator of mom commiseration. I feel like nobody gets enough sleep. But yes, the ways in which people suffer was quite eye-opening.
I also thought I love the essay of the woman who retreats to her closet to get a good night's sleep.
Yes.
So great. So it wasn't just that people had sleep deprivation, but the way that they went about kind of trying to overcome their sleep deprivation, I found interesting.
And that last one was Carla Nomberg, and she wrote something called a book called How to Stop Losing Your Shit with Your Kids, which was really funny and also really helpful. She's a therapist. So yes, she took to the closet for sleep apnea.
So was that a topic that you had gotten a lot of essays on and decided to make it a topic in your book, or was that a topic that you sought out essays on?
I sought out essays on all these topics.
Okay. And is that because you personally were having sleep issues? Or
yeah, I mean, I have 4 kids. I just don't really sleep that much. They take turns waking me up. It depends what stage they're in. My son now, who's only 7, has decided he can't fall asleep before 10, and then my daughter, who's 8, has decided she can't sleep past 5, and then I have my teenagers, and it's like it's a zoo. It's like a zoo. So yes, I wanted to hear.
I feel like that's something that they don't tell you when you have little kids and you're sleep deprived. They don't tell you that when you have teenagers, it's going to be worse, and when you have adult children, it's not going to stop. You're never really going to get a really, really good night's sleep again once you have kids. That's
probably not. Yeah.
Nobody warns you. It's probably a good thing that they don't warn you about that. What are I wanted to ask you if there are any, I know you seem to share a lot in your own essays, but is there anything that you feel like is off limits? Is there anything, like when you've written personal essays, is there anything that you feel like you will not share?
Yeah, there's a lot I don't share. I mean, I don't like to talk about my kids in any sort of personal way. I'm happy to do very benign, anecdotes or something. But if you read everything, I started writing personal essays and publishing them when I was 16. And if you were to take the time, which I'm not recommending this, to read sort of like everything I've written from now until then, I don't think you would know my kids. I don't want you to know who they are. That's their story to tell. So I don't write about that. I don't write about some, of the more personal stuff. My family, I don't know. But feelings, I write about. And anecdotes and relatable things.
I noticed that you included a couple men in your book. So
Yeah.
tell me about how that came up, even though it's called Moms Don't Have Time To. Tell me about how it came to be that you included some men.
I just really wanted a range of people. I wanted a range of genders and races and cultures and religions and sexuality and everything. And I just thought I should mix it up and get a lot of different viewpoints to keep the reader entertained. So,
So I want to mention that I really enjoyed both, actually. I think there were two or three written by men, but one of the men wrote about napping and how
yes.
mom would lay down on the floor and nap, and he just couldn't believe it. Him and his brothers, they were rambunctious and they couldn't believe their mom napped, and now all three of them are nappers. So I just
Yes.
that was really great. Um, I wanted to also ask you about a chapter that I feel like is missing from your
Okay.
book. I want to suggest it.
Okay.
I would call it Moms Don't Have Time to Be Moms to Our Moms. And
Yes.
there are a lot of women like myself that are taking care of children. Mine are a little older now, but also are taking care of our moms. And it's a lot of responsibility. And I just want to suggest that as a future chapter for one of your books.
Moms don't have time
To be moms to our moms.
I love it. Um,
So just throwing that out there as a
yeah,
suggestion.
I thought about doing a whole anthology about dads don't have time to and grandmas don't have time to. I thought about that, but for now I'm gonna pause on the anthologies for at least right now. But I think maybe I'll do another one later.
Um, Talk about the essays on illness. That because that could be a downer, but none of them were. They were actually all, even when they were serious topics, I felt like they were all uplifting in their own way. So did you select those carefully? Were there some that you felt like you didn't want to include, or talk a little bit about that?
No, there were none I didn't want to include. Sometimes I didn't know what they were going to write. Until they pitched me, I didn't know about some of their issues. I didn't know that Carlin Omberg had sleep apnea. Like I didn't know, and that was in the sleep section, I think. But yeah, I didn't know. Like with Lily King, I didn't know about her daughter's issue. I didn't know. So, but I loved hearing about it, and I think they're all uplifting because the message behind all of it, and in fact, I feel like the whole book is we can get through it, and we can get through it by sharing and with our communities, whether that's our families or our extended communities or the readers. And I think that's what's sort of hopeful about them all is yes, we're struggling, but yes, we're getting through it because we are. And that's kind of like now in the world, right? We're all struggling a bit with these new normals or whatever and the ever changing life and people getting sick all the time and loss. I lost my mother-in-law and my grandmother-in-law at the very, well, not the very beginning, last summer or 2 summers ago to COVID before vaccines and all of that. And there's been a lot of loss and, um, we get through it because we do, and we have to enjoy what we have. And my whole brand is sort of based tongue in cheek on this fact that life is short. And if we don't make the time for the things that are important, that's it, right? We don't get to do it again. So I'm hoping that uh, that's the hidden message that will inspire people.
I feel like now, because many of us who have been worrying about our children, and during the pandemic, we continue to worry about our children. But what this pandemic really brought out is a lot of us worry about our elderly parents in ways that we've never really worried about before. So it kind of turned the tables on, I think, on the worrying. And
Yes,
that's such an interesting time.
it's true.
I want to make sure that I have time to take questions because I see that there are some questions in there. So I'm going to go ahead and ask. Oh, I like this one. What is the best and worst part about being an author versus being an editor?
I like that question a lot. So there's I Originally, I thought being an editor of a collection would be totally different, but it turns out that you get treated a lot the same as an author, but you don't do as much of the writing. So, in a way, it's almost a shortcut to becoming an author. I do have two other books coming out that I'm really excited about. I have a children's book coming out April 19th called Princess Charming, which is available for pre-order at Books and Books. And I have my own memoir coming out that I'm really excited about and I've been working on forever, and that's coming out July 1st. It's called Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature. So I feel like I can rightfully claim the author sort of crown, if you will, or mantle when those come out. So when people call me an author now, I'm still like I'm still so honored by it, but I feel like I'm almost cheating.
You did write some essays in that book that was published.
Yes, I wrote some essays. I mean, I'm
So you're
definitely
an
a
author.
writer. I've been writing forever. I have unpublished stuff. I have published stuff. Yeah, it's nice. It was a really great way, honestly, to learn about the publishing industry and to have the support of so many people because with these books, I launched each book with 50 co-authors. So it wasn't just me out there promoting it and trying to get attention to it. We all were a team, which I love because my whole mission also is to promote authors and the work that they do because I'm such a huge book lover and always have been. So that's a real highlight is the team nature of it and all of us sort of going out um, and spreading the word. So I'm a little nervous for my own book because it's, I don't have anybody doing it with me, and if I
I'm
promote
sure
it,
it's
I'm
going to
just
be great because I
promoting
enjoyed it.
myself.
Based on the essays that are in this book, I think yours, I'm looking forward to reading yours. One of the next questions also, it's how do you decide the order of the essays? And do you have certain people in mind when you're making these decisions?
Um, I really think the first book was just alphabetical. This one, I don't even remember. I feel like I know we tried to mix up like the how not to say like how big deal an author was. Like we wanted to put like undiscovered authors or new authors next to best-selling authors and try to mix it up that way. Um, but there was no big scientific plan, I have to say. Sorry.
I have to say one more thing is that I was really surprised. I'd mentioned earlier, and I guess I'm going to mention again, just how candid people were in their essays. And there was one essay where can't remember the name of the author, but she wrote about how poor she was and how they stole food. And they had this elaborate scheme to steal food because they were so poor they hadn't eaten in a week or something. And I just was like, wow, that's very personal to share. So you really got people to really divulge a lot of very personal information, which makes the book so compelling. What are some of the books on your nightstand? One of the attendees would like to know.
They change all the time based on my podcast. So as I said, every week I have 7 new books. So I literally look in my calendar to see what I have to read. So today, earlier, these were on my nightstand until this morning, but I just talked to both these authors, Jasmine Guillory, While We Were Dating, which is really fun about a movie star and the man who was like on her ad campaign. And it's really light and I really enjoyed it. And then I read When Did I Get Like This? The Screamer, the Warrior, the Dinosaur Chicken Nugget Buyer, and Other Mothers I Swore I'd Never Be by Amy Wilson. And she hosts the What Fresh Hell podcast. So I did those two. And then let's see. Oh, I just finished Free Love by Tessa Hadley. That's coming out early next month. It's so beautiful and literary and just really beautiful. And yeah, I'm reading like a whole bunch of different things. In fact, I haven't even gotten through half the books this week. Um, so it's always something new. On my podcast today, I released an episode with Colleen Hoover, who has like
gosh, I will.
5
I
books
just
on the
finished one of her books and I loved it.
Okay, well, listen, I mean, she wasn't too open about, I mean, she wasn't too sometimes my podcasts get very intimate, like the essays, and people share a lot and cry and whatever. But this is very nice, and it was nice to get to know her. So if you want to listen, you can check that
I
out.
would love to listen. Besides your book, what's your go-to book to recommend for moms, especially since they don't have time to read?
Um, I think it's the one book that they have always wanted to read themselves. I mean, I could give you like books that I've loved, but everybody has something that's been nagging at them or that they wish they could read. And I feel like if they would just read 5 pages, like don't make the goal the whole book, I think it can be overwhelming to see all those pages. Just start with 5 pages of the book you've always wanted to read, and then tell yourself you're going to put it down. And if you're really hooked after 5 pages, give it another night of 5 pages, and then maybe another night, and see if you want to go on. But don't feel compelled to finish. I would just like dip in, like they're like you're getting your feet wet in lots of books, or reread something that you've loved, or um, I don't know. I think there are books that have really affected me a lot along the way, and um, have meaning in some way. And so I'm not trying to make it a cop out. But like if I had time, I would go to every person here and be like, okay, well, what are the 4 or 5 books you've already read and that you've loved, or what do you not like? And then I'm pretty good at like recommending books personally, but I don't
Well,
know.
along those lines, one of our attendees wants to know, do you read every book on your podcast? And if so, how do you have the time?
I have learned how to skim, like speed read, skim, and get everything out of a book. I wish I had time to like read them all slowly. I do read incredibly quickly, and I've realized that my reading speed has increased. I thought it was a fixed skill, but it is not, or it wasn't for me. I was always fast, but I've become even more fast. But I can literally like flip through a book in 15 minutes and really get everything out of it. I can get the characters and the tone and the voice and the plot and the chapters and the structure. And then I research the author and I learn about them and I read essays and get to know them as a person. And that's all I really need for the interview. Um, some I start reading and I'm like, oh, I better sit down for this. Like I have, So
Right.
those ones, and hopefully I start it with enough time that I can do that. Um, but no, I don't. I mean, I don't read every book cover to cover. I would not have time. But I do really cover every book.
Well, one of our attendees happens to be a wonderful author whose books I really have enjoyed, Ana Viciana Suarez, who worked with me when we were both at the Miami Herald. And so she's paying you a wonderful compliment. She says, I love your podcast. And she
Oh,
says, what kind of planning and time goes to the variety of authors you interview? Do you have a grand schedule?
I do. It is unwieldy, and I'm tempted to turn my computer, but there are piles over here, and there are books all over here, and
We
every
want to
day
see. Give
I
us a
get.
little glimpse.
Well, you'll see like the jacket on the floor. Hold on. So first of all, oh wait, I don't know if I can even turn my desktop, but if you see my desk over there with those piles of books,
Yeah.
those are all books that have come in this week and last week that I have to go through. I spend a lot of time on that actually. Not actually, but it's really important to me to pick books that I love, but also I really want a range. Like I want to be able to hit all the reading moods you can have. Thrillers and self-help and fiction and memoir and some business books occasionally and some children's books occasionally. And I just like to mix it up. But I'm changing the way I do it. And I've been doing this podcast since March of 2018. I've always done it based on when the pitches come in via email and how good they sound. And then I get the books sent to me if I think they sound good. And then if I get them, I used to be like, oh, yes, this, or no, not this. But some months I ended up with like 40 books that were coming out that month that I said yes to. And we had to do these blasts where we released 5 in a day because we ran out of days. So I'm going to be much more strategic starting in June, and I'm putting them in piles by month of when they come out. And so I'm going to do 15. This is what I'm going to try to do: 15 new releases a month. And then also another 5 with like older books or something that came out from an author that I've already had on, or something special, or something like a cookbook that I really want to do, or something else. Because every month I pick the top like 15 books of the month for Good Morning America, and then every week I write a column for Katie Couric Media. So I always have to like mix it up and recommend all these different ones. So I don't know if you have suggestions, but I have a girl.
Like it's a work in progress. Which,
it's a work in progress. I shouldn't have shared all that. I was probably really
pretty
boring.
much life. Work in
sorry.
progress. I love it. What are the biggest changes you think will be post-pandemic with books and publishing?
You know, I was just on the phone today with an independent bookstore owner who said that he expects to see a dip in sales soon when life gets back going again, and that he thinks a lot of online sales are here to stay. I'm trying to encourage people to go to bookstores. I love bookstores so much. I think it's really important to authors that people discover works in bookstores. So I started a publishing company in September called Zibby Books, and our books start coming out in January 23. But in this year, I launched 22 in 22, which is a Zibby Books initiative to encourage readers to go to 22 bookstores in the whole year 2022. And I have all these incentives on my website. So if you sign up, you just click on 22and22.net and you say, I'm in, and you fill out your name and whatever. And then every time you go to a bookstore, you just click log a bookstore visit and you say where you are.
You're talking about independent bookstores, right? As opposed to
it doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be? Okay.
But I don't say that explicitly, but most of the time they are. I just really want people in stores, but I do feel very strongly about supporting independent bookstores, but I didn't want to leave anybody out, so I didn't specify. But anyway, if any of you love going to bookstores, and you could go to the same bookstore 22 times, and you don't have to buy anything. But I love
I'm not sure we have 22 bookstores in South Florida, but if we could go to the same bookstore over and over.
No, you can go to the same one over and over. If you go every weekend, you just log it. And when you get 5, you get a special bookmark. And when you get 10, you get a special essay from an author. And you get on the website if you want. And we call you out on social media and congratulate you. And it's like this whole fun thing. And then there's a $500 prize at the end for that we'll do like little raffle for. So for a book selling binge. So anyway.
I love it. And I agree with you. You know what? I read something recently that book sales were down, and I think it has something to do with streaming and Netflix and we're all watching TV all the time. And I'm really hoping that doesn't stop people from reading, because I think we could do both. So I agree with your plug for reading. Also, I just want to mention, I'm sorry to interrupt your interview, but I want to mention that for those locally who don't know, that the Miami Herald has a wonderful Facebook group called Miami Herald Books, and you don't have to have worked at the Miami Herald or read the Miami Herald. You just have to like books. And I've gotten so many really good book recommendations from that group, and people weigh in and tell their thoughts on books, and I just really, really enjoy it. I know Anna's part of that group too. I've seen her write in and comments. It's just, and Zibby, you might want to join too.
I'm thinking about it. I just wrote it down.
yeah. There's some really good book recommendations, and then, everybody has a lot of opinions on books. People, enjoy different type genres, but I've gotten some great recommendations out of that. Okay, so we have another question for you, Zibby. What was your best interview, and was it your favorite interview?
I interviewed my dad. He wrote a book, and I really loved that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What was his book about?
It's called What It Takes: Lessons in the Pursuit of Excellence. It's more of a business book, but it was his life story basically, and I just loved it. I went to his office and brought my microphone, and that was very special.
Oh, I love that. That is very special. Okay. That I can imagine you're a little prejudiced because that was your dad. So other than that, do you have another one that was your favorite?
I interviewed Alicia Keys. That was really exciting.
Wow.
And I interviewed recently Hillary Clinton about her new book in front of like 1,000 people. And I just recently interviewed Katie Couric in person, which I loved. Her episode's coming out soon. Um,
I just finished her book and I really enjoyed it.
yeah, that was
Book.
good.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was very,
Um,
I was actually surprised how candid she was in her book.
yes, very candid. Um, so, I mean, those are my highest profile ones, I would say. Not necessarily my favorites, but the ones that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Um, I don't
Any
know.
upcoming that you're really looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to interviewing Nick Hornby, and I just saw it was rescheduled because I have to take my son to the doctor, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that like because I was like, I need to clear this day, and I was like, now I'm rescheduling Nick Hornby. Um, coming up, I don't know. There are lots of exciting people, but of course, I'm drawing a complete blank right now.
Well, having written about work-life balance for maybe, I think probably a dozen years, I always found that many of the people I interviewed had all kinds of little tips and tricks and things they did to stay organized or to help them balance. Do you have any tips or tricks that you use?
I use all sorts of different color-coded calendars in my iCal, one for each kid, one for podcasts, one for, like all different things so that I can see what I'm doing when. Um, I've started using Siri on my phone because I kept being late for things because I would be on email. And anyway, so now I have a little alarm. So I'm always asking Siri to remind me to
I love
get on a
that.
Zoom and things like that. Um, what else? I have things planned out for a long time. So my calendar is very clear what I have to do. Um, and honestly, when I do things, I do them very intentionally. Like I don't usually multitask that much. I'm either doing email for an hour, or I'm doing an event, or I'm playing with my kids, or so I go back, I go from activity to activity, but quickly, but
Is that
I
something
don't.
you trained yourself to do over time?
Yes. And I will say I am divorced and remarried. So every other weekend, I have this long weekend without the kids. And I do not think
Ah.
I would be able to do all the stuff that I do without that, because I wrote my whole book on those weekends. And I read, I catch up and read a lot of books on the weekends and then catch up on emails. And so that's like
The
the secret,
upside of divorce,
the
Zibby, the
upside of
upside.
divorce. Yes. I couldn't have done this. I don't think I
What's
would
the ages of your children?
7, 8, and then I have twins that are 14.
Okay. So you're just beginning the teen years. You've got a lot ahead of you, Zibby.
Yes, thank you.
So what is something that you hope to do that's not, that you haven't started or it's not already on your calendar? What is something that like maybe a long-term goal that you have in mind?
I think eventually I would like to do some sort of bookstore experience. Maybe not a traditional one where it stays in the same place, maybe like pop-up bookstores or a bookstore van, or I don't know, something where I get to actually interact with more people. I really love interacting with people and talking about books. So I wouldn't mind doing that. Um, yeah, that would be really
That's a
neat.
very cool goal. I like it.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
there any authors that you were a longtime fan of and were really excited to meet?
Yes, I was so excited to interview Dani Shapiro. She's one of my favorite
Oh, I
authors,
like her
and
too.
oh my gosh, that was one of my in my first 20 or something, through a friend who knew her. Um, and that was amazing. Anna Quinlan, I tried for years to interview her and I kept getting no's, and then finally she said yes, and now we like email and it's really exciting. And she was
Aw,
great. So I've been a fan of hers forever.
me
Um,
too.
yeah, I just like am going through the books I used to have, and
Your
I'm
favorites seem to be a lot of my favorites. I love it.
ah
I have to say, your book made me want to read the author's books at the end of each essay. When you talk about the different books that they publish, I I highlighted them all. I wanted to go back and, after reading some of these essays that really touched me, I wanted to go ahead and read their books. It also made me want to write an essay because I've written so many columns over the years and so many articles, but I've never written an essay. So
Cindy, you should write an essay. I also started this publication on Medium called Moms Don't Have Time to Write, and it's a personal essay site.
oh,
So
I
we
love
would
that.
love for you to write an essay for that if you are interested. Please do.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll write that down. I'll write that down. Yeah, I'm interested in that. I just, you know what, when you live in the moment of on deadline, sometimes writing something personal, it takes a little longer. It just seems a little, of a challenge, but I'm going to do it. What if you were to go through this current book? I'll hold it up so everybody can see it who hasn't seen it yet. If you were to go through this book, what essay surprised you the most? What do you think somebody who picks this book up for the first time, there's just so many great essays in there, but which one sort of surprised you?
What surprised me?
Maybe because of the author,
Yeah.
the
So
author writing on a particular topic.
Gigi Lavangi, who is a LA-based author, her essay, I didn't know a lot about her family before her essay, and that her sister had been in prison and she had basically raised her nephew
Oh, yes.
who had cancer, and it was a whole thing. And I was like, and I'd seen her in LA, like we hung out. You just don't know about people's past. And so I was surprised by that, and then sort of instantly closer to her because she shared it. So
that was one of my favorite essays, I have to say. Just to give everybody a little background who might not have read it, she wrote about her nephew, I believe it's her nephew. And she was just a very outgoing, I think that the title of the chapter is A Son of My Own. And he just was a very outgoing kid. And at some point he got diagnosed with testicular cancer.
yes.
And the whole family just rallied around him in such a positive way. It turned out to be such an uplifting piece on such a sad topic, but it was just so uplifting. So I just really enjoyed that one. It was very well done.
Thank you.
So yes, I could see how you'd be surprised by that. I'm going to give everybody a chance if anybody else has any other questions.
I think there's one right over here if you want me to quickly answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does one have to pitch a book before it is sent to you? And have you ever been sent books by multiple authors? Yes, I have been sent books by multiple authors, and I interview them together. And yes, you have to pitch the book via email, and you can do that at info@zibbyowens.com if anybody is interested. So that's just one I saw over here in the chat. How do you contact me about the podcast? Yes, again, it's info@zibbyowens.com. So yes.
Interviewing multiple authors, because I find with articles, that's not always easy to interview several people at a time. Do you find that to be challenging?
No, I enjoy it. It's like moderating. I do a lot of event moderating, and I don't know, I like that. I like finding the common threads, and I enjoy it.
How do you find some of these authors that are, how do they usually find each other and join together on these projects?
Either they're friends or colleagues. Usually it's something like that they've known each other in some way. And so.
Do you have a certain type of book that you gravitate toward?
I love memoirs the most, I have to say. I could read memoirs all day, every day. Some days I do.
In my book club, they don't seem to like memoirs. That's the one thing. Every once in a while I push for memoir, but the rest of the women just don't seem to like memoirs. It's interesting that you said that was one of your favorite genres. I like it.
Thanks. Yeah.
Particular memoir in the last year that you read that you really enjoyed?
Let's see, whose memoir? There's one called American Daughter by Stephanie Thornton Plymale. That was surprising. It was so good. Again, underrated. So many twists and turns. Her mother was bipolar. She basically had to get through this really horrific childhood where they grew up eating seaweed off the beach, and she turned into this interior designer with a really happy marriage and family. And then there are all these like unexpected twists, and by the end you're like, oh my gosh. So I really enjoyed that.
I just find it so interesting to see some, even the chapters in your book, what some people overcome, and you just never realize it. I mean,
Yes.
that's always so amazing to me.
Yes.
And yeah, so I want to once again mention it's called Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids. And so tell us different chapters again. The sleep thing really got me because I don't know. Don't think I've had a good night's sleep since I had children. You would think that once your kids get older, you have good night's sleeps, but you're always worried. There's always something to worry about. If I'm not worrying about my kids, I'm worrying about my own mom. So yeah, that one really spoke to me. But talk again about the different topics within the book.
Yeah, so to summarize, Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids, essays by 49 authors, and they're about sleep, getting sick, seeing friends, writing, and losing weight. So
now the Seeing Friends chapter, the Seeing Friends one, because that's something we all struggle with too, but it gets a little easier as your kids get older. But what compelled you to keep that, to include that as a chapter? Were you getting a lot of moms talking about that topic?
yeah, it's one of the first things to go. People not making time for their friends, and I wanted to sort of celebrate the power of female friendship.
That seems to be also like, for the years I've written columns on mom guilt, and that's always one that moms seem to feel so guilty about letting their friends go. But it's so important because as you get older, that's who's there for you. So I'm a big believer in making time for your friends, making that a priority. And then
Meanwhile, my two kids are literally crying and banging on the door. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but it's like oh my gosh.
And then lastly here, the Moms Don't Have Time to Lose Weight. I liked that one. Was that something that some of the moms had suggested to you?
Yes, and it's been, a lifelong issue for me. And I had a podcast also, Moms Don't Have Time to Lose Weight. And yes, women's relationships with their bodies and men. There's one by Richie Jackson in there called Peloton and on, which I thought was great. Yeah, it's a struggle, especially this time, I think, or particularly in the beginning. So
well, that was another word I had on my list of the 5 things that I liked about your book. When the vocabulary, I couldn't figure out what I had written. That was one of the words, the Peloton. That was huge during COVID.
Well, you can just feel free to write a whole article about it. I mean, it's almost done now. So,
One of the things that I really thought was interesting was a lot of the essays on COVID or the pandemic were early on when we were in lockdown. And I thought it would be interesting. It really, you forget that frame of mind, that stage in time, because we're past it now. So you forgot, it brought back memories to me, which were only like a year ago, but it's been just such a whirlwind of what that period of time was like for us. And I like that you captured that. Now I would like to see some essays like more current.
Yes.
I think people are still struggling and all this.
Well, maybe I'll do another one. I don't know. Maybe I'll do another one soon. It is really fun. So.
All right. Well, we're giving you a lot of ideas. How are we doing on time? Are we okay?
You guys are fantastic. But we are at about 8:23-ish. So I just was coming in to say thank you guys for doing this because it was
thank
really
you for
fantastic.
having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Zibby, it's great. I think what we love the most about this is when we get that background information, because that's what really compels us to keep reading and like, well, maybe I'll read that again because now I'm looking at it through a different lens. So thank you so much for sharing really what it takes to put something like this together and how it also affects you as an editor personally and just all the figuring that goes behind the scenes. So thank you for that. And Cindy, as always, like you do a wonderful job of tying it all together because it's not so easy with all those different authors and all those different essays and making it all work. So we really appreciate you guys.
Well, I'm a big fan of the book. I highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed all the essays and how personal and candid everyone was. So thank you, Zibby. Thank you for putting it all together.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to read it. That really means a lot.
And I also, I'm welcome to invite all of you guys to come join us again on Thursday night. We have author Ann Seba, who is her book about Ethel Rosenberg. And that is a completely different subject, but at a different time. It's 1:00 in the afternoon on Thursday, but it's another event that we're having with the Florida JCC. So we hope that you'll join us for that. And Zibby, we wish you lots of luck in 22. I'm going to do that visit, the 22 books.
Oh, good. Yay. I'm
I'm
glad.
going to totally do
Yes,
that. And
me
we will
too,
look
me
for your
too.
memoir and your other books. And thank you for doing what you do. And listen, everybody encourage you to listen to her podcast and
Yeah.
see all that.
Zibby, I'm going to put the 2222 challenge in the Herald book group. So
Oh, amazing. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
a lot of them would like to do that.
Oh yeah,
Thank
we
you
can
so
put it
much.
on our newsletters as well. We will
Yes,
do that in our
put it in
Culture
your
Arts
newsletter.
newsletter.
It's a
Yeah,
good challenge. I like it. Yeah.
it's a great
We need
challenge.
to keep those independent bookstores going.
Thank you. That's a great,
Absolutely.
great help. Thanks.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Okay.
thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening.
Bye-bye.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
night. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Keep
Yes.
reading.